Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Life Story Coach podcast. And if this is your first time visiting, then I'm glad that you found us. Today, I want to talk about the topic of sharing, and not about clients sharing their stories, but about when and what is appropriate for us to share about ourselves. So a couple weeks ago, I had a conversation with a woman who hosts a podcast. Her name is Jennifer Gardner. The podcast is called Rome Hall. It's a great show, and we had talked about. It was a very long, hour long phone conversation, and the purpose of it was to explore whether or not I would be a good fit to be a guest on her show. And at quick glance, I met all of her criteria. So midlife career change, check. Change spurred by a painful life episode, check. Out of the ordinary steps taken that it might appeal to other people, check. With an extra dollop or two of hardship thrown in. So in other words, we talked about how I started the Story Scribe, which is my personal history business, my memoir writing service, when I was in the middle of getting a divorce, and also in the middle of setting up a nesting program, a nesting thing. So instead of the kids moving back and forth between their dad's house and my house, he and I moved in and out of the family home. So the kids stayed put, and he and I shared a duplex. So when he was at the duplex, I was at the house with the kids, and vice versa. That has some of its own challenges, and we did that for 3 years. In the midst of this, I'm trying to get this business up and going. I also worked every Saturday and Sunday, a different job. That was every Saturday and Sunday. And there were some other extra things that just made things hard. I mean, divorce is always hard. Families are not meant to be taken apart, so it's to be expected. Anyhow, Jennifer and I were talking about all this stuff, and the conversation, what I realized was it was getting full of, it was getting harder and harder to progress. So there were lots of starts and stops. And basically that was because she kept asking me to dig deeper. She wanted me to paint a picture of what my life had been like during that period. And I tried, but the deeper that she wanted me to dig down, the more panicky I began to feel. She wanted me to be really open with her. And what I realized was that I was starting to hit a wall. Okay, so bear with me. I'm not trying to tell you all of this to get all, confession-y and bare my private life to everybody, because I really don't want to do that. But what I realized was that there were these long pauses when I didn't know how to express things. So words were failing me over and over again. And I've always considered myself to be pretty good at self-reflection, but I think that happens much more on the page when I'm writing than when I'm talking, because as it turns out, maybe I'm not all that great of a conversationalist when I am put in the interviewee's seat. So again, it wasn't just the facts that she was going for. She was mining for my reactions, my feelings, my interpretations of things. And then I had a little start when she asked me, so I told her about one particularly painful thing, and she said, "What did you learn from that?" And I thought, hey, wait, that's my question. Because it is. That's a question that I very regularly ask my clients when, if they're talking about something that's big, not just a small little anecdote, but if it's apparent that it had an impact on their life, then I'll ask them very often, how did that make you feel? Or what did you learn from that? And just a little aside, I might have mentioned this before, like the how did it make you feel? Very often women can answer that much easier than men can. What did you learn from that? That's something that men have an easier time with. What I realized, though, was that I didn't really have a very easy time with either of those. So what did this teach me? I like to think that when I'm sitting down to interview one of my storytellers, that I bring a lot of sensitivity to it. I feel like I am a really good interviewer. I've gotten better as I've gone along. But until my talk with Jennifer, I didn't realize being on the other side, being the one sitting in the interviewee seat, I didn't realize what it felt like exactly. I didn't fully comprehend what it means and how hard it is to really express something in a coherent way. So not just the facts, because the facts are usually pretty easy to get out there. But we as personal historians aren't just going for the facts, right? We're wanting people's interpretation of things. We're wanting their reflections on what has happened. And that's really hard, especially if you haven't really processed it already and in your mind gone through what this topic meant to you. So if we're asking a question of our storyteller that they're not expecting, and especially if it's something that they have not really spent much time thinking about previously in life, it can be really difficult. And that's something that I guess I just didn't really understand. A couple weeks ago, one of my storytellers apologized for not knowing some of the answers that I had been asking throughout the interview, and I hate that. I don't want them to feel like they're failing. That they got a C- on this episode. It shouldn't be performative. These should just be very easygoing conversations, not necessarily with a topic, but they should feel easy when they talk about it, and they shouldn't feel like that I'm expecting something of them. I don't ever want them to think that. And, hello again. I had some technical glitches, so things might look slightly different right now. But anyways, what I was talking about before was I don't want the clients to feel like they're doing something wrong when they can't answer questions. And I tried to tell them that. But maybe that's something that I need to work on and get a little bit improve. Maybe they need to hear that a bit more often, not just at the beginning of our sit downs for our interviews, but maybe it bears repeating that it's okay when they don't know the answer to something. So that was a really big lesson for me to learn. And basically what I took from my conversation with Jennifer Gardner was that I have a greater appreciation now of how hard it can be to answer questions about your own life. And it's not because you don't want to share, but it's just because, maybe you haven't churned through things. Maybe you haven't made sense of things yet. Maybe you haven't processed yourself some of the things that have happened to you. Clearly I haven't. So my takeaway and my call to action to you is to, put yourself in the position of being interviewed, not by a friend, not by somebody, you've got something on your mind and so you're going to run to one of your close girlfriends, but actually have somebody interview you, at least for a little bit, and you'll get an idea of what that feels like and what it's feeling like when we are talking to our storytellers. Okay. So part 2, and this is another thing that I learned and has made me reconsider my ideas on how much we should share with people that we meet, clients or potential clients. So a few days ago, I don't know when this is going to air, but it's April now, 2018, and a few days ago on April 9th, I gave a presentation to a group of senior citizens. And they had asked me to come and talk at this Monday meeting, and I like doing presentations. It's a really good thing. It's a good tool to have in your marketing tool belt, because the topic just lends itself very easily to talking about, and it's really easy to make talks fun and entertaining and informative. It's just so many people have a natural interest in this, so it's not a hard thing to do. And I like doing it. I enjoy going to these groups. Sometimes it's writers groups that ask me. Sometimes it's the Rotary. Sometimes it's, church groups, senior citizen places. So anyhow, I walk in and there's about 25 senior citizens, and they're waiting to hear my talk about personal history. And it was a great atmosphere. They've been getting together for over 30 years. Having a couple dozen people sitting there waiting to listen to you and being eager, it's heartening, I think. So I included an audio clip in my presentation. I bring a speaker with me so that it can be heard. And I include this audio clip that I sometimes use, sometimes don't. And it's about a woman who is the storyteller that I'm interviewing is talking about when she was a child, this ghost appeared by her bedside. And she was so terrified that she couldn't even get the courage to call out for her mom. Okay, the reason I include it is it's kind of a teaching thing. It's to show people that they shouldn't be afraid to let their storyteller go on tangents, because you don't know where the rich veins of stories are where you're going to dig them up. And in this case, this ghost that appeared by her bedside happened to look like the aunt that her mother had fought with. So the aunt and the mother were sisters. They had had a falling out just before this woman was born, and it turned into a family feud that lasted until they died. They never made up. So these two sisters both died as old women, and they never made up. So it was a pretty significant thing in this family's life. Okay, well, usually that's where I end it. You know, I'll play the audio clip, I'll explain, I'll use it to sort of teach one way of finding stories where you may not expect them. But this time I went a little bit further. As it happened, this presentation, like I said, took place on April 9th, 2018. It turns out that it fell on the 1-year anniversary of my father's death. So my dad died April 9th of 2017. 9 months before that, my mother died. And you have probably already guessed, the woman on the recording, that was my mom. So I don't mention that to groups usually. There's no reason to. It's a great little audio clip for the purpose that I use it for. And I don't feel the need to tell people that that's my mom. I don't feel the need to tell them, about our family history, about my mom sinking into dementia, her mind going dark over several years. I don't feel the need to tell them about my dad insisting that he take care of her at home. I don't feel the need to talk about how my dad got so worn out by this that 9 months after she died, he died. It's just not someplace that I want to go. But this time I did. You know, it was the anniversary of his death, and it was an important day for me and a very sad day. And the mood changed as soon as I told them. As soon as I told them about what had happened to her, what had happened to my dad, what the day meant to me. And there wasn't anything that I was trying to teach them or convince them of, except that, if they want to do their life story, they should do it. They should start doing it now. That's a message that I try to give everybody. But really, I only told them because I couldn't help myself. It was a really big day for me. So it came very near the end of the presentation, and I was worried because you're not supposed to end the presentation on a down note, right? Everybody knows that, and I'd kind of blown that already. But we had a question and answer. I gave them a door prize. I collected emails on the slips of paper that had their names that I picked out of a hat for the door prize. So that's one hint to build your email list. But very soon after this, I had my stuff packed up and I was heading out to leave. And so many people came up to me and thanked me for the talk. But more importantly, they expressed their sympathy, and it just all sounded so sincere. And one lady in particular, it was very moving. She had been sitting towards the back. She seemed quiet and maybe a little on the shy side. And as soon as I was walking by her row to leave, she got up and she came and she asked if she could give me a hug, because she said she knows how hard it is to lose a parent. And I think that was incredibly touching, partly because she was in her 70s or 80s, and she recognized that it was painful, that it was, I was in a little bit of pain. So I guess my point is that I think I've changed my mind a little bit. I think maybe sometimes it is good to share our story, or at least part of it. We need to recognize professional boundaries, but maybe they are not as impermeable as I have thought before. So I know this is not a lot of practical advice for personal historians. It's more my thinking about things and how my thinking has evolved over just the past couple of weeks. But I hope that it helps you. And one thing that I'm wondering about is maybe this points out to a vocational hazard that we have as personal historians. So we get really, really good at interviewing people. We get really good at listening to their stories and being empathetic, being active listeners, all of those things that we need to do to be a good witness to their story. And maybe we do it so much that we forget how to tell our own stories, that we forget how to share and let others see us and see the conflicts in our own lives. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Enjoyed, I'm not sure if that's the right word. This is my first ever video. I don't know if I'll be doing this again or not. Let me know if you like it. But I would love to have your take on things, and especially if you have any good ideas or if you have something to share on this topic of how much we should be telling our clients or our prospective clients. Head over to thelifestorycoach.com and look for episode 13, and you can share in the comments section, or you can listen to a slightly different version of this on iTunes, and that's at the Life Story Coach podcast. Thank you for joining me, and I hope that we see each other again in the future.